Hello, welcome to the Dr. Van Ingen Clinical Psychology and Parenting Show. You know, a big thing that parents face is anger and what to do about it. So often in my practice, when I talk with parents, they wonder, how do we help John with his anger? Uh, so I think parents need to have some strategies that they can teach their child when they get angry. Plus, I think that there's non-anger phases, periods of time when there's calmness, and that's when we teach about thinking patterns. And then third, I think, excuse me, third, I think we really want to understand the origin of the anger. So, the origin of the anger in terms of underlying thought pattern that drives the anger. Okay, so of course, if mommy's an angry mom or if daddy's an angry dad, that's going to have an effect and you're going to have an angry child. So certainly setting up the environment to, if you come from an angry background yourself, and that monster's inside of you, starving that monster and helping us and responding more calmly is going to help our child respond more calmly. But I think, so that definitely is true. But I think it's important to have some strategies to teach your children what to do when they get angry. But two, I think when they're not angry, we need to help them figure out what they can do, what their thought patterns are that often drive up anger. And then I think three, we need to, as parents, just really focus in on trying to understand what is driving the anger. Sometimes it's obvious, right? I can't stay up late, so I get angry, I slam the door. But I think we want to be a little bit more, there's other times when it's not so easy to understand. So I think certainly first there's strategies for anger. So push-ups, cleaning, punching the pillow. There's more effective strategies than the cathartic. I would transfer it to behavior that's healthy and functional, like exercise. But certainly counting, breathing technique, 2-4-8, inhale 2, hold for 8, exhale 4. Have counting with breathing, going for walks, things like that. Those would be strategies for anger management when working with your 12-year-old Danny who is very angry. But I think a couple thought patterns that I want to mention is misattributions. So misattributions, when your child makes a misattribution, a good example would be, he's really out to get me. So it's common for a child to say, he's really out to get me, referring to stepdad. So that would be a misattribution, most likely. And so trying to get at some of those misattributions are really helpful. And so when they're calm, over this past week, have you noticed any misattributions? Or simply put, an interpretation that possibly could have been different than what you were thinking. A second one that is very common is the overgeneralization. All right, so this is the anger distortion or the cognitive distortion where a child says you always or you never. And so as parents, we are susceptible to making that cognitive error as well. And so we really want to try to eliminate this anger distortion of overgeneralization. You always respond that way. You never let me do this, right? And so trying to help us to be specific now as opposed to you always, you never. And of course, easier said than done, right? But we want to work towards the misattributions and the overgeneralizations because that influences anger. Third, I mentioned it's helpful for parents to understand the origin of the anger. So here, some kids are my way kids, all right? So if they're a my way kid, they're more likely to get angry because they didn't get their way, right? Another kid may be a ducks in a row kid. And so here, ducks have to be in a row. Organization is key. But if things are out of order, that's what triggers the anger. Third, pride is pricked. And so here there's an opportunity for parents to convey and instruct and teach humility. Right? But my pride is pricked. Something happened that pricked my pride. That may drive up the anger. So my way kid, pride is pricked kid, there are tendencies towards this. Ducks in a row. Look, the shampoo is not where it's supposed to be. Things have to be lined up. The shoes have to be organized in a certain way. So here the answer may be tolerance and flexibility. So having loving tolerance and having loving flexibility. Fourth, bruise of inadequacy. And so here anger may flare up because there's something penetrating me. There's something inadequate about me that's coming up. And so here you have anger as a result of a bruise of inadequacy. So I think it's helpful as parents to think deeply about, right, what is the cause of anger for this child. So those are some things to think about. We want to know strategies. We want to address thought patterns, misattributions, and overgeneralizations. And then third, we want to think about the origin of the anger. If I mentioned anxiety, I meant anger. And that's actually an interesting point because sometimes what you see is anger, but underneath is anxiety, fear. And we want faith to replace fear. We want to see fear as false evidence that appears real. Because fear can squelch love. We want love to thrive, to flourish. This is Dr. Daniel Van Ingen. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Dr. Van Ingen Clinical Psychology and Parenting Show. Check out my new book, You Are Your Child's Best Psychologist, 7 Keys to Excellence in Parenting.